First Holmes was born, then he got fat, bald, and tired. What's up, Holmes?
Beware your host, Jonathan Holmes.
Thank you so much, Sinistar. You sounded particularly sinister today. I appreciate it. Austin Ivansmith, you are here on the show.
Yes, I
am.
am.
This is our 50th episode. You are the star of the a little bit over a year anniversary of Sup Holmes. Thank you so much for starring in our show.
Well, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
No, not at all. And thank you for putting Mighty Switch Force HD on sale in honor of your starring in this show.
Yes.
Did you really? No, that was just a coincidence.
No. Like literally, with Nintendo, you can put a game on sale on their Wii U eShop whenever you want. And in advance of the show, I said, "Hey, I'm going to be on Sup Holmes on February 24th. Let's run a sale for the game, and let's do a big one. Let's do 50% off. You know, the game's been out for a couple months, and we're doing the show. You know, you and I were trying to get the show happening back in December, November, but you were booked because you're such a popular guy, and so you had to push me all the way out to February. So you know, it just made sense to let's remind people about the game and maybe have a big sale and have fun talking about it, and hopefully people will want to go buy it if they haven't already."
So you weren't lying?
I wasn't lying. I would never lie to you.
Well, you could if you wanted. I don't mind lies that much. But wow, I really appreciate it. Well, people who don't know, because we kind of just jumped right into it, you work for WayForward Technology?
It's just WayForward. It used to be WayForward Technologies, but we're just trying to go by WayForward.
Right. And you directed Mighty Switch Force HD,
right,
the third game in the Mighty series, as it was brought over to the Wii U at launch, or was it around launch?
No, it was a launch title. It was a launch title in America. It was 1 week shy of a launch title in Europe, and it was just, you know, because of bad luck with paperwork, you know. But in my heart, it's a launch title in Europe still.
And how was that to work on a launch title for untested new console, new tech, new audience, potentially new everything? Tell us all about that process.
I mean, it's fun. I mean, it's a mystery because, yeah, you have this hardware that, you know, doesn't look like the final hardware, and, you know, you're experimenting with this new device. It's a lot of fun, to tell you the truth, because you go to E3 as a fan and you see like all this Nintendo stuff, and you come back to your work, and then maybe a couple months later you have it and you're holding it. You're like, oh, this is so cool. But then all it runs is like a blue screen for a while. You're like, I can't play a game on it. But you know, once you get the game running on it, it's just like I want to take photos and show everyone and bring people over and be like, you got to play this. It's so cool. Oh, the gamepad. It's so much fun. You hear people like, you know, contemplating on the internet, like, oh, I wonder if it's going to be like this. Oh, it's too bulky. And I'm like, I can't say anything. I can't say, no, it feels good. It's really cool. Or the gamepad screen works really well. But it's neat because as a Nintendo fan, you have a lot of fun with it. You know, for me, I'm not a programmer, so I don't have to deal with a lot of the headaches of, you know, figuring out the technology. I just hear the programmers complaining, like, I don't know how to do this yet. I got to read up on it. I don't know how to do this yet. I got to read up on it. So, you know, there's that. But and it is kind of nerve-wracking to, you know, you don't have anything to compare to, you know, with a console that isn't out yet. Because up until now, every game I've ever worked on has been on a console where there's already a game, you know, other games on the system. You can boot it up and compare. You know, with the 3DS, it's like, well, let's look at other games' banners. Let's look at download games. How do they do their e-manual? But with the Wii U, it's like we don't know. We don't know how they're doing their banners. You know,
sure, it was a whole new thing. They had a whole new eShop. They had a whole new philosophy towards online, and there was a lot of bad expectations. Sadly, going into it. Yeah.
People can be picky. You know, people are picky these days. They got a lot of high expectations, I'd say. But
there is a real culture that I've seen develop over the past 5 years or so with video game fans on the internet of entitlement and enjoying being disappointed. Kind of, you know, saying. I remember people were so happy to say, "Guess what? The Wii U pad doesn't work." There's rumors coming out that it sucks, and there's like a 10-minute delay, and they were very, very excited about it. Right. And I had played it. The first time I played the Wii U was 2011, I think. I think so. Yeah, it came out in 12. I played it a year before that. So I was like, no, actually it works, guys. Don't worry about it. And they're like, no, it doesn't. I'm I'm like, no, it works. Played it. They're like, you're lying. Why would you lie to me about that? They were like, didn't want to let go.
I think it's a really human condition. I think a lot of people do that. They get a kick out of, belittling other things, and it's not uncommon. It's not uncommon to see it in, sadly, and I don't want to go down this route too soon in the conversation, but, with the company I worked at before I started WayForward, we never got really a good review on any games, and it's like the reviewers that reviewed our games seemed like they had a lot of fun poking fun at us. It's like, oh, this game's horrible. This game is just total crap. Like, what were these developers thinking? And it's like you're sitting with your friends sort of making fun of something that's horrible, and that can come it feeds into some reviews. Not everybody. I mean, there's a lot of really objective reviewers, but it's everywhere. So you see it there, you see it in some previews and some news. And I think people, it's like they're having fun. They want to have fun with it. You just want to get with your friends. You don't want everything to be like static and just uptight and completely objective all the time. Even when I go to lunch with the other guys at work, we bash on things, so I think it's kind of normal.
Well, that's so nice. You're so understanding towards the people. I, of course, have high expectations for everyone and expect them to be perfect, and if not, I'm going to bash them for bashing other things. Those jerks. How dare they? No, I'm just doing it too.
Well, then you shouldn't be creating anything, because you need a really thick skin to be able to make art or make video games or make anything creative. So, as I'm sure you're running into now with your Pokemon. So. Oh
yeah, that's really a hoot. Teenage Pokemon Episode 3 came out today. But more about you.
Yeah, I don't want to talk about you. Let's talk about me.
Yeah, definitely. I see a Yoshi behind you, and I saw on the blog that's a painting that you did, which speaks to maybe an artistic background for you. How did you get started in video games and in art making in general?
Well, as a kid, I've always been an artist. I was the kid in school that was, sitting and drawing when I should have been taking notes. I think it all started in like 4th grade with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, because it went from just doodling like war scenes where you take 2 pieces of paper and tape them together. You draw a giant battle of stick figures, and you got one cliff on one side and one on the other with airplanes. And it's like, oh, this guy's shooting this guy, and this guy's shooting this guy. You show like a big death scene. Did you ever do that?
Oh, absolutely.
It's like every kid did that. That's so amazing. Like you like before the internet, you could go back in time and like go to like any 3rd grade classroom, and it's like, oh, there's the kids drawing a war scene of stick figures. But Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles got me to draw like shapes and forms and people. And then the adventure was it Darkwater came out? Pirates of Darkwater, and then I started drawing people, and I drew like fantasy worlds and comic book characters, and I was going to be an animator or artist, I knew, and just went to art school eventually for 3D modeling. And while I was there, because it was a bachelor's degree, I learned all sorts of things with like painting and sculpting and whatnot. And I'm not a really good painter. Like, I have a really hard time applying paint and having any kind of patience. But a few years ago, I start off going over to the painting. When I started at WayForward, and I started just cruising the internet and seeing people with like, there was a lot of perler bead stuff out there, and anything that had an 8-bit or 16-bit character on it had some sort of other like phrase on it, or some sort of like tilting to it, or like a graffiti, like a drip pattern, and I didn't like it. I wanted to celebrate the art, and I had this canvas sitting around for years actually. I wish I'd never painted on. I said, screw it, I'm painting my favorite game. I'm painting Mario sitting on Yoshi, and it was fun. It was a lot of fun, because the one thing I am good at is mixing paint. So, none of the paint on the canvas is straight out of the tube. It's all mixed by hand and matched to the screen, and the application isn't too hard. It doesn't go down with one stroke. You got to be careful. I didn't use any tape. I laid everything out on a grid, and then just painted by hand, because to me it's more fun. It's fun. I really enjoyed it. It's kind of cathartic, and then you get little inconsistencies and little imperfections, but that's the beauty of it. That if I wanted it to be perfect and I wanted it to be flat, I could just get it printed, on something. I could just take an image, blow it up, print it on a canvas, done. But the imperfections are what make it really neat to me, and I have at least 5 more paintings I need to do. I have a 4-foot by like 3-foot Samus, like standing on her ship from Super Metroid, like plan that I need to do.
Sounds
You know?
awesome.
Yeah,
So, was Super Nintendo your favorite console when you were younger?
probably. I mean, it's which is funny because like I remember back when my friends were all getting Super Nintendos, and I'm like, I'm not getting a Super Nintendo. I got the NES. You guys can play Final Fight. I'll get Mighty Final Fight. Like whatever. But I think looking back, the Super Nintendo I think had my favorite graphics. Like
Mm.
just visually, and like I like playing Super Mario All Stars more than I like playing the NES versions because the
Mm.
sound and the visuals just they're just gorgeous to me. I love that feel. I love that pixel art. But I think the PlayStation might have been my favorite. There was just a lot of. That's when I was getting into gaming the most as a teenager. So
Ah,
the PlayStation and the Super Nintendo both have a place in my heart for different reasons.
PlayStation 1.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, yeah, I could see that in 3D modeling background. That would make sense too. But you say the Super Nintendo had wonderful graphics. I agree. But just today, I was talking to a friend of mine on the internet, a reader of Destructoid, who continually he just like instinctually can't help but say everyone who likes sprite graphics only likes them for like nostalgia and for like a kind of social classism where you say, "Oh, I like retro graphics. I'm like more hip and cool than the guys who like polygon based graphics." And I personally don't see it that way. I see sprites as just kind of being their own medium, like a mosaic painting, like the painting you did. But enough out of me. What do you make of that? Do you think that your interest in sprite art is nostalgia based, or is it simply a love of art form?
I think it's a combination. I mean, there's obviously the nostalgia of it's something you're very familiar with, something you really love. I mean, I think it's hard to analyze like completely objectively because everyone is a result of all their influences over their entire life. So there, yeah, nostalgia has a big factor for it for me. But I mean, I look at NES art. I don't like NES sprites that much.
Mm, mhm,
They're like as a kid you focus on, oh man, the next console is going to have way better graphics, and you just get like, oh my god, this looks so good. And I look back at the NES and I look back at the Atari, and it's like it's neat to go back and play, and there's some great game concepts in there, but I have a really hard time with the graphics on some of them. And
mm,
I my
mhm.
plan is to never paint an NES version because it just doesn't resonate with me. But I don't think it's strictly an old school thing. Like there's plenty of games coming out now. Even just yesterday, I was watching Joachim Sandberg,
Mm,
draw do his pixel modeling and animation, and it's just got there's great characteristics to it.
mhm,
It's a simplicity. It's broken down to the simplest forms and just an elegance. There's like elegance in art. It's like saying that simple shapes are just stupid. Just breaking
mm.
things down. Oh, Picasso. You just want to like it because it's different than everybody else, and it's like if, you should be hashing in detail left and right. It's like, well, I mean, again, going to our earlier conversation, like people just. I don't know. I'm a pretty optimistic guy, so I'm forgiving these days. I was a really opinionated teenager. Fairly opinionated today, but not as like mean as I used to
Mm,
be. I'm kind of
mm,
like, to
sure.
each his own. Everyone has their own taste. Like there are definitely people that that they like something because they want to like it first, or they want to like it ahead of other people, or just to kind of like prove something. But there's
Hmm.
plenty of people that aren't that way, and you can't let those people ruin a good thing for you.
Absolutely. I think that everything can be good. Is that fair enough to say?
I think that's a broad enough statement that can be used so many places. I'm going to quote you
Right.
on that. I'm going to put on a shirt. Everything can be good.
I think it might be. And sprite art in particular I love because the minimalism and the every little detail counts. Like you were talking about how the little imperfections in your painting will bring out something, and that there's a life to that. I think that when you put two pixels together and they do something unexpected, that's super fun. But at the same time, I love a pocky marked polygon man, especially if he's chasing after me with a pickaxe. Resident Evil 4 is awesome. That wouldn't be as good in pixels. It wouldn't be scary. It would be
I don't
kind of
know. You
interesting.
could really pull something off. I mean, we were able to do something with Aliens Infestation. If
You
we were to
super were.
take Resident Evil and turn it into a side-scrolling pixel game, we could do it.
You
I'll take that
could.
challenge.
Yeah, I hope you do. That would be fun. But at the same token, I was more scared of Resident Evil 4 because a disgusting Polygon Man was coming
Right.
at me.
No, no, I
Then
agree. I agree.
yeah, then in like even Super Metroid, which I love and gives you a great sense of atmosphere and intensity, but I never felt like those monsters were really gonna eat me as a guy. But maybe you disagree.
Yeah. Well,
You feel like those monsters were gonna eat you?
when I was 14 and I was playing Super Metroid, and you get near the end, you're like, oh crap, there's Metroids here now. It's just like I sometimes had to pause and put down the controller. It's like, all right, like, it's intimidating and frightening, and you get the panic. It's like, oh crap, and like you're like panicking, you're not jumping right, you're not shooting right, and oh yeah, I had that fear as just as much as when I played Resident Evil, and then like the dogs jumped through the window the first time, and it's just like one of those epic moments in games. So yeah, I don't know, the graphics for me, the biggest the graphics only seem to ruin it for me when there's a lot of slowdown or I can't read things right. As much as I love Grand Theft Auto series, in San Andreas, when I'm flying a plane and there's no draw-in of something, and all of a sudden like a telephone pole pops up when I'm like flying my plane and I'm dead. It's like, damn it, that's that's the kind of stuff that gets me. It can be hard to go back and play games with graphics that just kind of ruin the experience. I guess
That are just broken.
Yeah.
And we're getting to an age now where hopefully there'll be no excuse for that anymore, where the computers and the consoles can run anything. But at the same token, I don't know if you were watching the PS4 announcement.
I was not. I was busy working. I was
on
at
a
my
video
desk
game?
working. Huh?
On a video game?
Yes, I was I was at my desk working on video games, not watching about other video games. It's like that's great. I got a milestone to hit. I'll look at it later. So
Sure, that makes sense. Have you seen any of the footage of it since then?
I think I saw some stuff briefly, and I saw some people just talking about it. I mean, as lame as as lame as it sounds, like I'm excited for like what the next consoles are going to be, but I've got other things to focus on right now, and I can look at them later when everything's sort of compiled.
Sure, you've got to actually make the games as opposed to just think about the things you might have to do on a console.
Kind of,
later.
yeah. It can be a curse. I mean, yeah, I got to pay attention to like what consoles are coming out so that not caught with my pants down when it's like, well, hey, we need to make a game for whatever console, and it's like, I don't know what that is. I don't know what its features are. Like, where am I? What is this place? But yeah, like I literally this week it's been busy, so I didn't have a chance to really do much.
I wish I could find out what you're doing, but I probably can't.
You don't get to know. It's a secret.
But in your opinion, in general, where do you think things are at in terms of the focus on graphics, and also how do you think WayForward fits into that? Because I feel like we're reaching a point where it's not going to be about, oh my god, I can't believe how much more realistic those graphics are than they used to be.
I think we used to say the same thing 10 years ago when PlayStation 2 came out. It's like, PlayStation 2 looks amazing. Look at Metal Gear Solid 2. Look at Metal Gear Solid 3. How can anything look better than this? And then a PlayStation 3 comes out, and it's like, oh, wow, look at this. Look at this. There's always new advances in technology. I mean, the thing I tell people a lot is polygons almost don't matter these days. Like, polygons haven't mattered for too long. What matters is textures. You have like 4 or 5 textures on a single model these days between a spec map and a normal map and the diffuse map, for all the different looks, and then the polygon count, any console can handle those these days. Texture memory is where it really kills you, and then they're finding so many ways to take those textures and do unique things with them and really make them pop. So I think graphics will keep getting better, but you can't just kitchen sink it, like the best games of the past 10 years are ones that use the textures like really smartly and use their lighting really well and just make a really clean, cohesive look that just reads really well. Elegance, I mean, is just key in all design and all art. When you have great, just a really elegant look where everything meshes really well, it just looks great, and things are going to continue to keep looking better, I think. And what's going to happen, I kind of predict, is there's more the complication where you have so many things you can do, more things get screwed up. Like when you play like Skyrim or Fallout and you just have these crazy bugs happen, it's because they're so big and there's so many things that can go wrong that things do. And I think we're going to see that, with graphics a little bit. But people are going to, figure them out and find great ways to make games still look great. And, even looking at the new Mario games, I mean, they got so much more power that you just have this 1080p Mario you can play that just looks really nice. and just clean graphics, smooth frame rate, and we're going to see more of that too. Besides just the gritty, action kind of stuff.
Gosh darn it, you're optimistic, and I like it. You're like, I'm like, oh, well, maybe graphics aren't as impressive as they used to be. And you're like, yes, they are. And you listed all these things. That's so nice. So nice that
You're
you
welcome.
like
That's
things.
why I'm here.
Yeah,
That's where
absolutely.
I'm at these days. Is that optimism?
Oh, but as standards change, I think people's standards for graphics are changing. And you're right. People aren't going to be necessarily as impressed with just polygon counts, but they are going to be impressed with application of the power and really look at art design. Like Journey, for instance, a lot of people saying
Right.
that's like the best looking game of last year, despite the fact that it wasn't the most expensive or and powerful looking game. But the
You'd be
application of the
surprised too. You'd be surprised too, because I remember when I was in college when Wind Waker came out, and I just heard a bunch of students, and our 3D teacher at the time was talking about it. He's like, "I'm so sick of people saying I don't like these low polygon games." It's like that thing is not low poly. It is
Hmm.
just as high poly as any other game because, or else the shading wouldn't work for the
Hmm.
for the toon shading,
Hmm.
and the best games just kind of hide the fact of what the technology is. You don't really realize all the things that they're doing because they're doing it so well.
Huh.
As God said on Futurama, if you do it right, it won't look like people won't know you did anything at all.
Yeah, yeah. I was thinking of Job, the magician from Arrested Development. But both of them very good at keeping their pennies hidden.
Exactly. Where
Um,
did the lighter fluid come from?
but another aspect of changing standards, something you've written about recently that I thought was very interesting, is how games are getting cheaper, and sometimes high-profile games are getting shorter. But people's standards for how much game or how long a game should be versus how much it costs are also really changing. Like a $40 Game Boy game from, I don't know, 10 years ago might only be 5 hours long. These days, that game people are expecting it to cost $5, $7, $8 tops a lot of the time. But you, being on the inside scoop, the inside track of that, you made a game that's relatively short. You can get through Mighty Switch Force in, well, it's pretty hard though. I think it probably took me like 5 or 6 hours the first time, but you could probably speed run it in, what would you guess, like
The
45
original
minutes?
the original before the bonus levels, you could beat it in 30 minutes easily. I think there was a really big fan on Game FAQs, and we had a race, and I tried beating the game in one life in under 30 minutes, including the bonus stages, and I was like 30 seconds shy of it. And it was really close. Yeah, it was fun. But yeah, if you know what you're doing and you're speed running the game front to back, it can be 30 minutes long. And yeah, this ties back. By the way, I'm glad you read that blog post. That touches my heart. I really
Oh, it's very well written.
thank you.
That's true.
You're the first person to tell me it's well written, so that means a lot too. Uh,
Don't you
one of
joke.
the things that my problem isn't so much that people's expectations might be off. It's that the intent. So as we talk about games as art, and it's like, well, who is the artist, and when does the artist's intent come into play?
Hmm.
So for us with Mighty Switch Force, I did a little press junket in San Francisco, showed it off to a few people. I don't think you guys can make it that day. I'm sure you're invited.
Oh, I'm over in Boston now, so I'm rarely
Well,
in
you
San
wouldn't have been
Francisco.
there, but there's other San Francisco guys, right?
Yeah, that's right. They should
Well,
have gone, the jerks.
they should have, and I can't believe they didn't show up. No, but there were some people we showed it to, and they asked, well, how long is it? And I said, well, on your first playthrough, it can take 2 to 3 hours, depending on how good you are. But if you wanted to speed run it, and you know everything inside and out, you can probably play it in about 30 minutes. And the guy who wrote a preview on it basically said like, oh, I got through like half of the game in like 15 minutes, so the game's really short. You can probably beat it in under an hour. And then everyone's like, oh, don't buy this. You can beat it in under an hour. It's like, oh, come on, guys. But Matt Bozon, who directed the game, he said, I want to make a game that is like an old Mega Man type game where on a weekend I can just pop it on, play through it for a half hour, beat it, and be like, wow, that was great. That was very enjoyable. The same way you might pop on a movie or just like pop on a Miyazaki film and be like, yeah, I'm just going to watch this like front to back, and oh, that was great. That was a great experience. So that was the intent. And so, we put it out there for basically $6. I look at it like it's $5 plus tip, like a $1 tip, right?
Sure.
And a lot of people, every review was, it's a great game, great visuals, great audio, great gameplay, but it's too short. Well, it's like, well, how short is too short for that price? Like, we intentionally, our previous Mighty titles were $8, and we said, well, this is a little shorter, let's make it a little cheaper. You know, and we were going back and forth on what to price it, and then we came to $6 because we felt like on the eShop for a Nintendo console that was a fair price for the size of game. And you know, I mean, people didn't react really badly to it. But it was just like the one negative, and it just made me question. I had to write that because I wanted to kind of get to the bottom of, you know, what is this? You know, it kind of makes me think of the episode of The Office with, you know, Michael Scott asks everybody, oh, would you rather have all you can eat pretty good pizza, or, you know, just a little bit of really good pizza? And they're like, a little bit of really good pizza. You know, and wants to, because like for me, I mean, I love Pushmo. Like, I love Pushmo, but I hit a ceiling. Like, there's levels I cannot beat. And it's like, so what's better, to have a game where you played through all the way to the end and you got to experience the entirety of the game, or a game you played for the same amount of time, but there's maybe levels you can never play, that you can never beat, but the idea that you could play them, or that they're out there for you, it feels like a better value. You know, it's kind of a weird thing that I think we're going to see more people explore and talk about over the coming years, as like a lot more indie developers are you know, making smaller titles that might run into the same thing.
I hope so. I'm seeing a lot of people talk about how they want shorter games now, and a lot of these people also happen to be the people who I know who enjoy going against the grain, but at the same time they enjoy going against the grain only if it has a purpose and if they're genuine. And a lot of people are saying Journey, Fez, Walking Dead, a lot of these games that you can get a lot out of in a short period of time, that's what they want. They want a condensed, intense experience as opposed to kind of a drawn-out...
artificial?
More just they don't want to have to wait until they feel like they've gotten the whole thing. And like you're saying about Pushmo, but
well, you know, both of them.
Yeah, you're probably never going to feel that sense of completion out of Pushmo unless you decide to do a bunch of stuff you don't actually feel like doing, which is beat levels that are so hard that you stop having fun, but you just do it for the sake of completion, which is a lousy way to enjoy your time. That's no fun.
Yeah, it can be, and I mean, some people. I know there's people out there that had a hard time with some of the later levels in Switch Force, but I mean, we meticulously tested every level and changed a lot of things. I was arguing with the director, Matt Bozon, on it. He's like, "You got to make this level easier." I'm like, "No, it's already easy enough. You're going to make it way too simple." And and he was right. I will admit to this day that he was right. Voldy, our owner, he's horrible at video games. He's absolutely horrible, and he played through the game. He beat the entire game. So it's like, because he could play the game and beat it, we're like, well, we did something right, because we wanted the previous two Mighty games. They had some ceilings in them where people couldn't get past a certain level, and we didn't want to have that same thing happen with Switch Force.
Oh, Flip Champs! Jesus Christ, that game involves and it was so hard to explain it to people who just thought, oh, it's just the naysayers in my world would say, oh, it's just kind of a two-screen gimmick, right? You're like looking at both screens at once. I'm like, no, you're keeping 8 screens at once in your mind. You've got to plan ahead. So many moves. What a brilliantly designed game that is.
Yeah, that game was amazing, and it was in development when I started in 2009, and I came in, and they're like, oh, check this thing out, and I'm like, oh, and I'm like, can I take this home and play it? I want to play it, and I like played through the whole thing. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so much fun. I love these levels. You know, like, it was fun for me, because just like the concept, it's something that just works so poorly for that console. It was just like it was angelic. It was serendipitous.
Yeah, it was, and it showed me, for me even more so than Shantae, Flip Champs was kind of solidifying to me what WayForward was as a company. Any company that would be like, yes, and cows, and a little cat with a jetpack, and then like that frog guy.
And Fishman.
Yeah, and Fishman.
Fishman. Yeah, that's I think that's actually a self-portrait of Matt. He drew himself as
no way,
as
really?
Fishman. I think he says it kind of jokingly, but he makes a face that looks like Fishman sometimes. So it's semi-autobiographical.
It took a lot of guts to do that, to really just go back to the way video games, in my mind, used to be, which was just throwing in a bunch of cute, weird things because that's all the graphical that's what the graphical limitations used to be. Was all you could do was cute, weird stuff.
Right, and I
Kind of
mean, and
doing
that's
that
the idea of the
intentionally.
Mighty Games. The Mighty Games were just, a very bottom-up design, like what's the mechanic first, and how do we make it fun, and then how do we, then make it interesting to look at or have, some fun things to do, visually, and yeah, like that. It's just great. I mean, it just it's what it's where good game design can come from. You know what I mean? Like when it comes the other way around, where it's like, oh, like you get fed story first, and like it has to be all this. It can be not as enjoyable, but you can make that work
Absolutely.
too. So
That's right. Everything is good, maybe,
everything's
but
good. Everything is good. We got to make the T-shirt. I want to
at
go do it
least
like right
maybe.
now. Everything is good, always.
But speaking of, always, but it kind of relates to something I meant to talk about earlier, because you were getting into some stuff that I'm always really interested to hear from developers, which is how it feels to see your game reviewed, and whether you can take the reviews 100% seriously. I feel like a lot of developers end up having the temptation to review reviewers and decide whether the reviewer's opinion is valid, regardless of whether it's praise or criticism. They'll read it and be like, I don't think they really got what this was about, or they're complaining about a detail which, in my mind, most people should be able to just kind of not focus on at least that hard. So do you find yourself reviewing reviewers when they've reviewed your games?
Oh, this is such a loaded question. I'll tell you, back when I come from a different background, because the first actual console developer I worked for was Left Field Productions. They did Excitebike 64, back in 2000, whatever.
That's awesome. What
And
were you, like 9?
well, yeah, it was great. I was running the floor, I was telling people what to do. That was my second job. I was like Ron Swanson. No, there was
2000. That was 13 years ago.
that was a long time ago. Well, I worked there starting in 2007. But I remember when I was 19 or 20 and I was playing Excitebike 64 with my friends, and I was like, oh, this is a lot of fun. I love Nintendo 64. I played that and Smash Brothers and whatever else. And I went to work for the developer, and just over lunch conversations and whatever, and I said like, oh, Excitebike 64, I love that game. And then like the CEO, who is Scottish and very foul mouthed, he's like, oh, that game was shit. And it's like, what? It's like, oh, that game was total shit. Like, it only got good reviews because it had Nintendo's name on it. Like, if it didn't have Nintendo's name on it, no one would like it. And I'm like, oh, what makes you say that? It's like, well, we took the exact same engine like 4 years later, and we put out another motorcycle game, and that got horrible reviews. And it's like, then they took the exact same level designs from that racing game, put them into Nitro Bike, put Nitro Bike out there, and with like the exact same level design. So talk about that. Reviewers never noticed that this other game had the exact same level layouts as this other game,
I remember
magically.
Nitro Bike. I
Yeah,
remember
and
thinking it
and
seemed
it
like
wasn't an amazing game by any means, but it's the kind of thing that if Nintendo had its name on it, it would have looked better. But also, you get a little review bump because it's like you come in with a little more optimism, you come in with a little more favor. And even when we do like a licensed title like Thor, or like the Batman series, Adam always jokes like, oh, well, I gave it 6.5. That's like a real 7.5 because some reviewers they don't want to play a comic book game. Or it's like, this is just coming from a movie. I'm not gonna like it. So you come in. I talk about this with my wife all the time because she's very smart and we talk about news and media literacy and just the fact that you can have no such thing as a truly objective article or piece because you're always bringing something with you, even when you're trying to be completely objective. You have a little bit of an angle, even ever so slight. So for me, working at that company, we also put out a game called Baja Score International Baja 1000, which I don't know if you recall. Like the game had legal troubles with another Baja game at the same time because our covers looked identical. Did you ever see that?
no,
Okay.
there's a Baja. There was
There-
like a Baja controversy about covers.
Yes, because a game came out called Baja, and it got announced right when we were in the middle of development on Baja 1000, and we had the license for the actual Baja 1000, and they didn't, so they had to take out the word 1000. It was this whole thing, but then they released their cover, and then our cover was almost identical, and I talked to the animator who laid out the cover. He's like, I don't know how that happened because I just put in some vehicles. They told me which ones to use like months prior to the cover coming out, and then it was the same. Anyway, that's a whole other thing. But because there was these two Baja games, There's a review, and on to this day, on Cheat Code Central, that is slamming our game because it's not a great game, but it's fun to be mean. But they have pictures from the other game in our game. So when you see things like that, it can be really hard to go, oh well, who reviewed this? Who is this person? You know what I mean? Like come on, guys. You know, like at least have the pictures of our game. So that sort of shaped my opinion to the point where, and even with like music, I'm a big music fan, and there's this one album that these music reviewers were really excited for, and they gave the EP a great review, and then the LP came out, and they didn't even write a review. They just showed a picture of two sad-faced dogs, and it said sorry with a frowny face. And I'm like, what? You know, like, come on, just at least be like critical and objective about like why you didn't like it and like how you were kind of duped or whatever, you know, and how you were confused or excited for this band, but don't turn it around on like it's the band's fault for like, you know, whatever. I don't know. So for
that
me,
was the review. It was just two sad dogs.
yeah, it was two puppies with like sad faces, and they just said sorry, and that was it. And it's just like, oh man, like that. I mean, that was kind of elitist. But
that's kind of man though. Do you think they got paid for that? I just want to post pictures of things.
They get ad revenue, right, on their website, so you know they'll get paid for that. No, so for me, like it can be hard, you know, because sometimes you see reviews and people kind of misunderstand something or whatever. But I'll say in my time at WayForward, just about every review has been really objective, and any ones that I felt like they didn't get it, it wasn't a lot they didn't get. It was just a couple little things. I think there's a lot of great reviewers out there who are really good at, being the right kind of critical and taking to task things that are wrong and could have been better. And sometimes you're sitting there agreeing, like, yeah, we wanted to do that. Yeah, we wanted to do that.
Sure.
You know, because games are abandoned. Especially, you know, licensed titles. You know, like if we were an indie dev, like 100% indie dev, and just could work on a game for months or years, we'd probably fix every little thing, but you know, you got to abandon your baby. Not your baby, not kill your darlings. You got a great art, pieces of art are abandoned, not finished. So you got to let go at some point and just let it get out there. So yeah, but I mean, I don't have a problem with a lot of reviews, but it can be hard. You know, I take them with a grain of salt and try to get ready to like be punched in the face. Like, okay, I'm gonna read it and. You know, a part of me wants to just avoid them and be like, I don't care because I want to just do, like as an artist, I want to do what I want to do. I want to be told, like objectively, here's where you messed up. You know, you should try better next time. Like in a critique in art school, and it's like, oh, okay, thank you, person I respect who's really smart and treating me really nicely. I will try that. And some reviews, you know, they'll just go for the throat and just like, these guys are idiots. They'll attack your character. They'll attack you. It's like, what kind of moron would do this? How could you be so stupid? And it's just like, oh, you know, like, I'd like, but I'm not saying every review out there is like that. But there have been a few, and it can be hard. It can really hurt you because you spend months and years, even at the worst developers. You have incredibly talented and motivated people working there. You know, I've been in the industry 8 years now, worked at about 4 or 5 places, and I've worked with some really talented people that had a lot of like knowledge and a lot of expertise. And when you spend years or and months doing something and you just get torn apart like that, it hurts. It's really sad. It really makes you question, like, is this what I want to do? Because it can be tough.
Yeah, absolutely. It's I get weird about people using the term lazy.
Yes.
Even when there was some show with a fashion man talking to a lady who was starting her own fashion line, and he was like, the designs are all right, but they're kind of lazy. And the woman was like working on them nonstop, and she's like, I did my best. It's a floral pattern. He's like, lazy. And people do that to game developers all the time.
Well, he didn't call her lazy. He called her designs lazy, right? You know, she wasn't.
That's true. But it was implied that it was a lack of effort, which was the result of why she made something he didn't like. And I think that a lot of people do that with video games, and it always bothers me a lot. I end up correcting people, which then bothers them, and we're both bothered. That they
think... You need a fist fight. Get it over with. Fisticuffs. You demand satisfaction.
They feel like they know, I didn't like this part of this game because the developers had this attitude towards it.
Right.
Like a lot of people will say, "Oh, I hate all fetch quests," and I'll be like, "No, you hate a fetch quest that was designed in a way that doesn't work for you." But somebody else might have felt like that quest gave them a lot of sense of purpose or an excuse to be in the world that they wanted to be in, running around in the game. But just because it didn't work for you doesn't mean the developers thought to themselves, "Oh, let's just pad this game with some crap." Maybe they did.
Maybe they did. You can never know. You can never know.
That's right.
And the only real problem I have with reviews is when there is the assumption of intent. And that's tough, because even with my own experience where I would tell people the intent and then that didn't get relayed, it's like, well, how are people going to know like what we were shooting for, what we were trying to do? It can be a little disappointing, but it's not too bad.
Yeah.
But
the reviewer, in my opinion, you can review me as a reviewer and tell me if you think
all right,
my attitude is good. You don't mind?
I don't mind.
Oh,
sorry, I shouldn't do something silent and people can't see me go, "Oh, okay, yeah, sure."
Oh, yeah, that's true. The camera automatically switches to who's talking. So when I review a game, I think to myself, okay, it's my job to tell people how I felt and what I think about how I felt. But first comes the feeling, because really everything else is kind of when it comes to the thinking, there's a lot of that is going to be guesswork or just analysis, which is kind of cold. And video games aren't a cold thing; they're hot. Artwork is subjective and hot, and all you can do is say, "Oh, I felt this way after I beat it." And for instance, with Mighty Switch Force, after I got through it, I did feel a little bit like, there should have been more. I wanted more. I like that a lot. And then I turned that over in my head a little bit and said, wow, that must be a pretty good game if I wanted more, because I got like 2 hours into Grand Theft Auto San Andreas and was like, I've had enough. Never again.
Yeah.
So at when I have that feeling, I will dock a game a little bit on the score, because it's true, I felt badly a little bit due to the way the game was designed, but at the same time, I don't dock it too much, because if I wanted more, that must be because it's a pretty good game. So
yeah, probably. Yeah, I can't fault anyone for feeling that way, because I know I felt the same way when I listen to when I go see a movie and it's really short. If it's really short, it's like, or it ended abruptly, it's like, I made the joke like 4 years ago, where it's like, I don't go see comedies in the theater because they're only 90 minutes long. If I'm gonna go all the way to the theater, I need 2 hours. I need a 2-hour action film. And so then I sound like a total like contradictory like jerk for wanting to take other people to task.
But if people were to write in their review they were lazy because the game's too short, then yeah, you could take test
okay.
But if they wrote, man, I wanted more from this game, so I felt a little bit bad after I beat it, but I still felt awesome. So,
but it also calls to question our medium, and like, so for an album like music, for example, I remember buying a couple albums, and sometimes they're only like 30 minutes long, and you're like, oh my gosh, it's so short, but then it's like, but that might be appropriate, and it's like, but you can listen to it again and again and again, and there is the appeal of hearing something for the first time and just getting blown away by it. And with video games, it seems like we gravitate towards that more than even music, where it's like you can only really enjoy something in a video game if you're experiencing it for the first time. So you need to see it for the first time, and then that's it. Someone might play through Switch Force one time and not really get to know the levels, inside and out. Like, I know people don't always like speedrunning. I don't consider myself a speedrunner, but I got to the point where in testing the levels, I played them enough that I really got to know them and like fall in love with them and tweak and tune them, that it just feels better. It's like listening to that song like multiple times. You just really grow to really like it. So it's a different medium. Like, we hold a lot to seeing things for the first time. I know there's a word for that, but I don't know. It's a Sunday. My brain's not 100%.
I think your brain's doing fantastic.
Oh, thank you, sir.
And Switch Force is a game that I thought was quick to encourage you and to let you know from the start. Just because you beat that level doesn't mean you really got to know everything there is to the design of that level, because, and this is true of all the Mighty games, as I recall, Mighty Milky Way was the same, in that there's a par time, so it's like, you think you did that well, but you could do it better, encouraging you to try it again. Questions popped up.
There's questions.
But before
are there people watching this? Because are there people that have questions? Like,
what's that thing?
I don't know. Maybe someone watching it who hasn't downloaded Mighty Switch Force for the Wii U can take this thing, go on the internet, or go on their Wii U and go download the game. Uh-oh, better do a screen grab. It's going away.
Oh, you're so nice. I'm going to talk so they can't read it. Oh, no, it's gone.
It's gone. It's gone. Like someone better have downloaded that.
I hope so.
You're welcome.
I was going to, before we go to the questions, though, I was going to make one last point because it's fun to talk to you about this. For me, it is a very different thing for someone to say up front, oh, that game's 4 hours long, then it's not worth blank amount of money. That is very different than I played those 4 hours. At the end of it, I felt like I wanted more and felt a little bit let down. So that's where my standard's at, as opposed to kind of a blanket set standard that every game for a certain price should be a certain length. Does that make sense?
Kind of, yes. I was reading the questions and I kind of lost track of what you were saying.
That's okay. Let's do the questions. I'll read them aloud.
I'm so sorry.
No, you're excited questions.
I caught the fans. No, I caught the end of it. So what you're trying to say is there shouldn't be a price model that's perfect for everything.
Kind of.
Kind of.
I think people
so
who
sorry.
say that's all right. I'm a real anti bullet points guy.
Gotcha.
I'll just leave it at that. When people say blank game should be blank length with blank kind of graphics and blank and multiplayer and just like going through a checklist of stuff.
What I always say is blanket statements are always bad.
Nice. Everything is good except blanket statements, which are always bad.
Blanket statements are always bad. You know, you can quote me on that. Make a shirt.
Except blanket. Well, that's a blanket statement.
I know. That's why it's really witty.
I enjoyed it. Our Xanadu asks, how did you get past through your first game? I think that was a question.
How often did you want to quit altogether when you didn't immediately know? I don't know. I don't know how.
Beware, forgot to edit question.
That's okay. That's okay. So to start, I think what he's asking is, how when you were designing your first game and you were pitted with all the problems that come with designing a game for the first time, how did you get through those challenges without just kind of giving up or feeling like you sucked forever?
I mean, you just got to keep trying. I mean, when people ask you anything in life, you get better with practice. So you can't stop doing anything when you hit your first hurdle in anything. You know, with art, with doing anything, cooking, whatever you're facing in your life, there's always going to be something that's like, oh, I can't do this. It's not very good. And the same with level design, or designing a game. You're going to fail. You're going to have failures. You're going to have failures that you need to learn from. Having a small failure isn't a sign of being a failure. It's learning from it and getting up. It's that old adage, it's not whether you get knocked down, it's getting back up. As lame as it is, it's very true. And so, like, the level design in Switchforce was a big hurdle, a big headache. There was you do one thing and you hit a roadblock. You just gotta get past it and just work your way through it and test and until you get a solution. I think that's what the question is, but even if it's not, I think it's a pretty good answer. So
that's a wonderful answer. But I am interested, and it's okay if you don't have a answer for this, but it's something I like to ask just about everybody I know, because it gets to the core of them sometimes. There's so many things that you've tried to do in your life, Austin Ivansmith. Like painting, for instance. You were at one time just doing the oil painting, and you were like, I'm trying to solve this problem with traditional oil painting, and I'm just not doing it as well as I'd like, so I'm going to stop and do something else. You've also hit challenges when you were designing levels. But instead of doing what you did with oil painting, which is move on, you were like, no, this is my thing, and I'm going to do this even though right now it's not fun. Right now this sucks. Right now I failed and this is hard.
Yeah.
But there was something about level design that kept you going through all that stuff. What do you think that is about level design in particular, or game development in general, that keeps you doing it even when it's hard?
It's the paycheck. It's getting paid to support my family, because it's like, well, I got to do it. I don't want to get fired.
But you've gotten good enough to do it to get paid for it, which is a lot of people want to be able to do, and somehow.
No. I mean, that's sort of a joke, kind of a jokey answer, but I just think it's ingrained in you. I've known so many people that even go to college and they just try a semester and they quit, and they're the people you keep around you are the ones that won't abandon you at the first sign of a problem. And I think that's how as lame as it is, a lot of marriages work. My wife and I have been through a lot of hurdles, and we work through them together. It's like, oh, okay, there you go. And I have a lot of friends, in development who I always come back to. You got a guy who I've got like a handful of freelancers or guys I worked at previous places where it's like, oh, we need this kind of model. I'm going to call this guy and see if he can do it, and he can, and he's like perfect, and he always comes through. And it's just, you just it's kind of related to what you're asking, but you just work through it, And for me, you just try to find the motivation. I put on my headphones, I listen to some music, and just kind of get some energy, and just try to push myself. That's all you can really do.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Thank you. And speaking of making sense, Fart Booty asks, who are some of your favorite artists? That makes a lot. Well, yeah, that's where farts come from. Are you a fan of Andy Warhol and Van Gogh? He asks.
I'm a big fan of Alphonse Mucha and Art Nouveau, turn of the century stuff. I know a lot of people are. I've got some Mucha paintings on my wall here. Just got such a great look. I love the really designer, thick line kind of look to things. I'm a big fan of Mike Mitchell. I'm wearing one of his shirts. He's an artist. People have probably seen his stuff recently. It's a wizard driving a Trans Am in space with on fire. I also have a unicorn, like a Viking riding a unicorn with a rainbow coming out of his butt in space. But yeah, Mike Mitchell does some great stuff. He's an LA artist. Ollie Moss. I'm sure everyone's seen his stuff. He always gets little features here and there. He's just an amazing designer right now. He did a Oscars poster recently where he's so smart. Oh, his art is amazing. You probably saw he did a thing called Paper Cuts where he had like 300 just like silhouettes of just famous characters. And and it's just silhouettes of faces. You've probably seen that type of art where it's just the silhouette art. Well, he did cartoon characters and real characters. He had all the guys from Reservoir Dogs, and he had all the colored paper of the different ones, like Mr. Pink, Mr. Blonde, whatever. He had a Waldo at the show. He had a Waldo. Where's Waldo? Up in the corner, hidden. The guy's he's just so much fun. He's so smart. You should really look it up. Ollie Moss. He's English, the bastard. I actually, I love a lot of different artists. And one of the things I really like, is with indie development, there's a lot of artists out there with Tumblrs, you can just go and look at their art. And there's this one I go to probably twice a week called Supersonic Electronic. And this guy, Zach, he just puts up art from people who are just making art on their own. They have their own styles, and he just kind of curates it almost, where it's like you can go and just be inspired by all these different artists of different styles, these people that are trying to do just all these different things. It's just I don't know. I get a lot of inspiration from that. For games, you got to look beyond games, and a lot of people look at movies, but I also like to look at fine art and music for inspiration in games.
Awesome.
Yeah.
What a fine answer, as I'm coming to expect from you, Austin Ivansmith. Briarbun asks, was it hard to make the transition from 3DS to Wii U? The transition, I've worked on enough consoles that, there's a lot of hurdles that you sort of deal with. I think the hardest thing was up-resing the art. It was just a lot of work, because we wanted to make sure that the game wasn't just, the pixel art. We wanted like a full, really beautiful looking experience. So making a tile set again was a big challenge, and then also we made the images normally with like our older games, the tile-based games. Tiles are kind of instanced. I don't know if everyone understands that, but it's get into it. Explain what tiles and instancing is.
It's kind of like something is loaded once. So if you see the brick in Mario, right, or even like you see that shape, you see that pattern, right, and then that is just loaded once into memory, and then it's just being placed multiple times. So there, you ever looked up a tile set of an old game? It's just, that's how it works. If you're playing Skyrim or Fallout and you just see this rock, that rock was just made once, and then that same rock is being stamped everywhere. The computer doesn't have to know, well, there's this rock here, and this is its texture, this is its verts. It's duplicating it. You just have it once, and it's just a carbon copy. It's just like it's easier and quicker. But with Switch Force, because the engine was so powerful on 3DS, we're like, oh, well, let's not even bother with that, because then we can paint meticulously every single section, and we can have shading and other effects and some lighting, and we did that a little bit. It made it, I think, feel really nice. And then when we went to bring that to Wii U, it's like, oh crap, we have images that are over 32,000 pixels big in one direction or the other. Photoshop can't save out a PSD, or it can't save out a ping, so you have to save it as a TIFF and then convert it to a ping. And it's just like that was kind of a headache. And actually animating, Joachim Sandberg, Konjac on Twitter. His animations for the 3DS version were amazing, and they just have so much character. He's just such an amazing animator. But to bring it to upres it wasn't as simple as just tracing. And Sarah Pocock, who headed the animation on the HD version of the game, she had a huge undertaking in getting the characters on model to match the promotional art, and then finding the proportions they needed, and then also, having an animation that worked for the proportions of this character that also looked right in the animation and had the same feel as Joachim's animation, because it wasn't a direct trace. It was, in most instances, it was we needed to get the feel of it, and it needed to be reanimated a little bit, and she did a wonderful job, like making sure that everything had the same like feel that we hit on the 3DS version. So that was probably one of the hardest things.
I can imagine, and sadly, I have seen other people try that, or other developers try that, and it falls apart. I don't know if you played Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo HD.
I did, yeah.
I was so disappointed in that because they drew different characters. It was a new model. They didn't like trace over the old sprites line for line, but they kept the same amount of frames of animation.
Right.
And what works in a pixel animation, where you've got those two blocks next to each other, which is where the tension comes from, and that's where the idea of the object comes from, and you can do different things with that than you can with just lines. And I feel like
it's a balance too, because I thought the game looked great when I saw still images from it, the Udon style art. I'm like, oh, this looks amazing, and you play it, and it doesn't, it didn't feel as smooth as I would have liked, but I can understand like the decision that had to be made, because it's like you don't want to piss off the Street Fighter fans, where it's like, well, hey man, the hitbox is all off now, or
sure, well, if
I can't frame count this the way I could, So
exactly, they had to keep the same amount of frames for the way it played, but what that resulted in was a game that I wish they just kept the sprite art, because it ended up.
I mean, you can turn it off. Just turn on the sprite art, man.
Could you? I tried.
Yeah, it's an option.
Maybe that's why I failed.
You don't like looking at option screens.
Yeah, I'm the worst.
You're gonna make a great reviewer someday.
Well, you guys did a wonderful job with
Switch
Force HD. There is a lot to it, and I'm glad that you talked a little bit about how much more it is, because a lot of people guess, because you did such a good job of keeping it the same feel. There's a lot of details I think that people didn't catch in how much new content there is to it. The art is totally new and does look very different. If you put them, if you match them up, it's not just a trace over, like you said. The music is new, and then there was new levels that
actually the music is the same. The music is the same. Like we had really high. Well, there are remixes that in the original game. It was very high fidelity songs, and then those just almost just dropped right into the Wii U. So it was amazing, because those songs by Jake Vert Kaufman. If you haven't heard the soundtrack or downloaded it, you can search him on Bandcamp or go to his website, go to our website. There's probably a link there. It's absolutely amazing. And then what happened was when so to go over the history of Switch Force real fast. After the game was released and we were getting the reviews of, there's not enough levels, we talked about, let's do DLC. And so we started actually looking into, let's make some DLC. And then once we got into sort of the complications of making the DLC for the system, we said, screw it, just, and we made some levels that said, let's forget it, let's just put them out there. You know what, just put them out there, let people play it. It'll be the definitive version of the game, and then people will get more levels and they'll be happier. Obviously, you can't necessarily go back and re-review it, but we didn't care. People really reacted well to it, and it sold pretty well, and it's like, here, enjoy. Here's 5 levels, and we made them after the game was out, after it was done, and we sort of evaluated what are some fun themes, where did we not do enough of, where did we not get enough puzzle action. Like, what were some things that were more one-off that we want to try some more of, and we did that. And for better or worse, people hated level 16 because of the auto-switching, and I didn't know that until later. There's some people that just don't like it. I'm like, we need another auto-switching level, so we made another auto-switching level to cap it off. And then when we talked about, releasing Switch Force for the Wii U, we said, we can't just port this and have it be a pixel version. If we're going to update the graphics, we got to give a little more content. Let's do something else that just sort of is for the fans, give people a reason to play it again or buy it for the first time versus the other one or whatever. And we said, well, what if we did an alternate version of all the levels? Because it would be really hard to make all new levels to add on to it, but I kind of like the idea of taking the levels from the first game and sort of putting a twist on them, putting a little bit of a remix on them. And knowing that it was a remix, I said, well, for the audio, why don't we play the remixes? Because for the original release, Jake had his friends make like 5 different remixes, and he did a couple himself. And it's like, well, to give the levels a different flavor, let's use the remixes. And so he got them to agree to put them in the game, and he wrote a couple new remixes. And that's why we play the remixes, to kind of give just a little different flavor while you're playing it. But yeah, all those levels were designed specifically for, well, we want the original game to be easy enough for everyone to play. It's like, well, what if we took these little puzzles, kind of turned them on their head a little bit, and made them a little more twisted and had some fun with them. And it was a lot of fun designing all those levels.
Yeah, so there's a lot there, people.
Yeah.
Don't just say, it's that
Go
game
play it. And it's only $5 right now, and €5 or something in Europe. It's like 50% off both North America and Europe right now for just a little while. We talked about doing it as a one-day sale, where it's like only on Sunday. You watch the show, you find out, like buzz spreads, and it's like, oh my gosh. But I mean, we talked about it, and it made more sense to put it on a full week, and
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm glad the more I can say I saved people money by asking you to be on the show, the better.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm taking full credit.
And so you want to know something else really cool?
Yes.
You want the coolest inside scoop ever?
Yes.
Yeah. I'm here to tell you on today's show that we are working on a sequel to Mighty Switch Force.
Whoa! Really?
So, yes, and it is called Mighty Switch Force 2. It is our first.
It's never been done in the Mighty series.
It's never been done because the Mighty series itself is almost a joke, where it's just kind of like, yeah, let's call it Mighty. Mighty Switch Force started off. Sorry to jump back now. Mighty Switch Force started off initially as, hey, let's do a Flip Champs sequel for the 3DS, and we started talking about, like, how would Flip Champs work on the 3DS? How would we do it just on the 3DS screen? And then we kind of came to the conclusion, well, if we're going to do all this, it would be a different game. And then we came up with a mechanic for Mighty Switch Force. So the games sort of just come out of, I guess, necessity or just ideas. And the idea came that it's like, man, Mighty Switch Force was so much fun to make. We were able to crank things out. Let's do another one, and let's change it up and just put out another game for the 3DS. And so right now it's in the polish phase. It should come out in the next few months, and you'll be seeing more on it. Hopefully in the coming weeks we'll start releasing some art and get people excited for it. But I just thought it'd be fun to mention it now versus you do a press release and then people kind of don't pick up on it, and then they aren't too excited. And it's like, I can tell you right now, we're working on Mighty Switch Force 2. Patty's back for more action, and it's going to be awesome.
Whoa. Thank you so much for announcing your exclusive information on my dumb
Hey,
show.
no problem. Like I really I don't think it's a dumb show. Kind of. No, kind of. It's kind of dumb, but not too dumb. But no, what I think is great is, I think it's neat that developers are getting an opportunity to talk one-on-one and talk to you and kind of get their voices heard, and I think it's neat. And I think more places, more websites and news outlets will start doing this, because people want to know what devs think, and not just through a PR firm or just through the publisher, because these conversations are great, and you want to celebrate the developer and give them an opportunity, give them a voice. So it's neat. I really think that this is going to take off even more, and more people are going to try to copy it. So
I hope so. I hope someone with money and skill does the exact same show. Just
Me
calls it
too.
like
Me too. And they take
Stephen
all the credit.
Kilio or so. Yeah, then you can be on their show instead and say, yeah, I was slumming it with Holmes for a while, and he started it.
So I don't like that guy. He's just kind of lazy, you know. He's in Boston, so I can't even like have the dignity to like come visit me and say hi, you know. No, it's cool. So yeah, I wanted to take the opportunity because it's like, you know, getting me in person to say like in person, you know, to say like, yeah, we're working on this and it's really neat, you know. It's just, I don't know, it's more fun, you know. We'll see what happens. We'll see who's watching. It's like, what?
I can't wait
you know?
to write. I'll write a separate post saying, "Dum Dum, you ought to be watching my show because I have great guys like Austin Ivansmith coming on and actually telling you news." It's
Right.
very. Can you tell us any other? Because I'm of course very excited. I don't expect you to be able to tell me anything else, but is there anything? Patty's back.
Patty's back. She's back and ready for action. She has a. I can't say much, but she does have a surprise career change.
That's very exciting.
We don't have. It could mean anything.
Yeah.
We don't have a price or date picked just yet, but it's going to be, you know, reasonable in the ballpark of the original. So I don't think it's going to be, you know, it's going to freak people out or you know, be a surprise. And what's kind of neat is if anyone has seen Jake Kaufman play at MagFest or at a few other shows, he's already played a few tracks from the game. So if you've heard a song from him, you're like, what's that song from? It's like, oh, well, you know, it's something he made for Mighty Switch Force 2. You got a sneak peek of it, and we couldn't say anything just yet. But some people have gotten a taste of it so far, and it's gotten some good response. The music is pretty astounding this time. It's really, really cool.
I'm really glad he's building up a huge following. People more and more I see are saying that they love WayForward, but the star of the show for them is more and more often the soundtrack, and they end up listening to that.
How dare they?
Again.
How dare they? Like,
he is pretty darn good. That Adventure Time soundtrack, that was amazing.
Jake is a monster. He's amazing. Like, just everything he does is just golden, and he's just so much fun to work with, and it's just really neat. You know, like it's great to, you know, when we think about what makes our games great, and like one of the things we talk about is how important visuals and audio are. Like audio, like when you have people will do the 8-bit, you know, visuals, but when you add the sound in, you know, or when you're trying to make something very retro, you hit that sound, it's magic. You hit the visuals and the sound. Without one or the other, it's just not the same. Like the audio is just killer, and there's Jake is just a master of it. He just knows how to just make everything sound amazing. So yeah, it's pretty neat. And I'm really glad he has that following, because then it helps us. It's like a great symbiotic relationship. So
absolutely, cool. I think people get that what WayForward is all about in part from the music, because he's a perfect fit for your studio in that he's technically skilled, as WayForward is, but also has a sense of humor and doesn't take them himself 100% serious all the time.
He doesn't take himself seriously at all. No, if you've ever seen him at MagFest and see how he dresses, it's like, you know, all right, cat ears, man, pink hair, yeah, all right. Yeah. Oh my God, it's been an hour and 10 minutes. You know what's great about the show too is this is like going to lunch. Like when you go to lunch with the friends at work and you sit around just talking about games, and it's like, oh crap, we got to get back to the office. It's been an hour or almost an hour. We got to go. You know, you're just sitting and talking, and that's what I think is really great. Is that, you know, it's very conversational. When I've watched other people talk, like Jim Crawford, I feel like he's my long lost brother. We have like the exact same like tastes in a lot of things, and just hearing him talk and have a conversation, it's like that's how you would talk at lunch, just casually. It's how I talk with Adam every day. Like hearing Adam talk on Sup Holmes is like, oh well, it's like we're hanging out at lunch. He's saying the, you know, same spiel. You know, it's natural. It's really neat. Or even the guys last week, Pixel Jam, they were just a lot of fun. It's like, hey, let's all go hang out. Yeah, you know, it's like it just feels, it's awesome. I like it.
Maybe in enough time I'll be able to have a Sup Holmes like creepy convention where everyone feels like they know each other because everyone else has watched each other's episodes, but you have never actually met, and everyone just feels terrible.
Yeah, exactly. That's a great idea. You want to creep everybody out. There is one question. I want to answer this question. Sure. Is there an update plan for Mighty Switch Force HD? There is an update planned. So one of the things that, like, when I talked earlier about being able to compare other games, we couldn't compare Switch Force to others really, and so our audio is really loud, and it has freaked some people out. And like, if you're blasting your speakers when you start out the game, like it's super loud. And so that we are working on the audio, because you know it sounded okay on our TV, but we couldn't boot up someone else's game, play their game, then play our game, and compare them side by side like you do for most games. So we do have an update planned with fixing the audio and a couple other bugs, but there isn't a firm date on it yet. But when that update comes, it'll be updated in both America and Europe, and when it's updated in Europe, it'll also be coming out in Australia. So there's no date for that yet, but that is planned. That is going to be coming in the near future. So.
Oh, good to know.
Yeah, I just wanted to answer that question because it's like as we get near 2:30, it's like
I know there's a bunch of questions, and I will do my best to go through them in a second.
Let's go through them fast. Let's rapid fire. Okay, you're more important. Ask me what you want to ask me.
Well, people want to know, and maybe they asked this and we didn't see it, but people want to know how you, as a developer, and your opinion from the inside, how you think the consoles you're working on are doing. The Wii U had a really rough month in January in terms of sales, though prior to that it had done well. People are unsure now. They're afraid that Wii U developers aren't happy with it, that they're not going to keep supporting it. It's great that Switch Force 2 is coming out on the 3DS. Things have turned around there a lot. But what's your feeling about where Nintendo's at console-wise right now? It's
hard to say. It's hard to say for us because we have our own view based on the game we have out there. Obviously, Switch Force HD came out on release day, and a lot of those consoles that were bought on release day were under Christmas trees, before Christmas. So our sales in the first week weren't a very relevant number compared to 3DS, where it's like. We came out after the eShop had already been out, and it was like first week sales were strongest, as is normal with most development cycles. But releases. But when looking at Switch Force as sales as a whole, they're strong. It's been doing really well, and they've been consistent. So from what we're seeing, it's like for our sales, this console isn't doing bad for us. And we want to keep making games for the Wii U when we're going to. Can't get into the details of that, but it's hard. When there's 3 consoles to choose from, and like PlayStation 3 was supposed to be a 10-year console, and now it's turning into like a 6-year console or 7-year console. You guys kind of talked about it on Podtoid last week that it's like there's so many consoles to choose from. They do so many different things, and they're all these big generalists, if you will. They're not specialists anymore. They don't specialize in one thing or the other. Where it's like PlayStation versus N64. It's like, well, which one? Well, one's the disc, one's the cartridge, one's got the 4 players, one's got the 2 player. If I'm going to play a single player RPG, I'm playing it on PlayStation. If I'm going to play a 4 player, Smash Brothers, Mario Party thing, I'm playing it on N64. Nowadays, it's like, well, everything comes out for everything. And do I get Grand Theft Auto 5 for PlayStation 3 or Xbox 360? Well, I have all these friends with PlayStation, all these friends with 360. I have a buddy who bought Battlefield 3 on both Xbox 360 and PS3 because he plays on the 360 with his friends from work and PS3 with his friends from real life, from previous high school friends and stuff. So it's like, yeah, it's tough. I'm really excited to see what Steam's doing because I've been a console fan for years because I couldn't have a computer in the house. And I hate installing, I hate all that stuff. But Steam's amazing. Like my wife bought me a Counter-Strike set back in like 2003, and I uploaded the codes, and I can just log into Steam and download it to any new computer I buy, and I don't have to go hunt down the disc or buy it again. And it's just like that's amazing. They're taking it over. They just got great. It's a great thing, And I think consoles. I don't know, man. It's going to be weird to see what happens over the coming years. I don't have a strong opinion on it. All I know is there'll always be games. There'll always be something to make a game for, and you just hope that you don't make one game for a console that no one's ever going to play, and then it just fall into obscurity. That's why we do make games for lots of different systems for publishers. We stay on all the different consoles and I'm pretty excited to see what happens next, So
yeah, me too. I'm trying to be optimistic. Do you guys have games on Steam? I'm trying to think.
No, we do not right now.
Hopefully you will, because that's a fun place to
Hopefully
be.
we will.
Yeah, like you said. All right, the questions. We have 15 minutes left. I bet we can get through all of these.
Let's do it.
Akarno asks, what excites you about the Wii U? And you talked a little bit about it, but we didn't get to the exciting part. What excites you about it?
Mighty Switch Force HD. No, I'm excited. Like, to be honest, I'm not excited about a lot in general. I have a 9-month-old son, and I don't do much anymore. I don't play games. And like, the guy from Pixel Jam said it last week. I got a 3-year-old, and I got to play Bastion for a couple hours, and that was it. And I'm like, that's how I am. Like, I don't get to play anything anymore. About the last game I played was Hundreds on iOS, which was just
game.
so much fun. I had the #1 score. I had the #1 endless score for weeks. Yeah, man. 4,998 or something like that, or 898.
Really?
Yeah, guy beat me by 1 point last week. So pissed off. So pissed off. But that's about the only thing I did.
By Adam Atomic. People
Right,
should
Adam
know
Atomic,
that.
who ported it to iOS with his company, and from the other guy, I think Greg Wolland, who wrote the original. And I'm semi-buddies with him on Twitter now. I'm more like, oh my gosh, I love the game. It's like I'm a developer who like loves that game because I can just lay in bed while my wife's falling asleep, and it's like, oh, time to fall asleep. I'm gonna play Hundreds, and it's like 2 hours later, like I shouldn't have done this. I should have been like falling asleep. So
have you done that with the Wii U at all? That was one of the.
I did. Little Inferno. Like I played the crap out of Little Inferno. I beat it like 3 times. I speedrun it one time just to be like, yeah, I want to see how fast I can go through it. And I just had a great time with it. I really enjoyed it. I think everyone should check it out. I have tried to, and I haven't got very far in it. Just circumstances of life that I haven't been able to really power it on and play through it more. I want to get Zombie U, and I want to play more Mario U. But I don't have the time.
Yeah,
it's like if I'm not working, like then it's like I go home. It's like I gotta spend time with my wife and kid, and then they go to bed, and it's like, okay, I could play something for a little while, or I could do the dishes, or so my wife doesn't have to do all the dishes the next day or something. And then it's like, okay, I should really sit and fall asleep or read. I like to read recently. I read the whole Song of Fire and Ice Game of Thrones thing. Have you read those?
Cool. No, my wife has read a good amount of them.
They're so amazing.
She sums them up for me, which is
nice.
Okay. The ice zombies showed up and banged on the wall. I'm like, that sounds like a good book. What happened in the next one? It's fun for me.
My wife is watching the trailer for the next one. She's like, who's that? Who's that? Who's that? I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't even tell you. It's so exciting. Like I can't talk to her about it because I'll like accidentally like slip who's alive and who's dead in book 5, and it's just so awesome. Anyway.
Yeah, it's good stuff. I'm glad those took off.
But yeah, I like to sit and read. So anyway.
Yeah, it's when you get older, it's different, isn't it? As you were saying, reading, geez, you get to just kind of
fall
space
asleep.
Out. Yeah, exactly. Whereas playing a game is like work, and
yes.
You do the work, and if you don't have something to pay for it or something to show for it, it feels like, why wasn't I just working on making my stuff?
And also, I can't be playing a game in bed, falling asleep, because I'll just start swearing and kicking and waking up my wife, and like,
thing.
It's cheater, these cheating games. Yeah.
Sirman, I wanted to know, do you think that the Wii U tablet solves any kind of development problems or adds anything to the...
Well, I don't see development problems in the question. I don't know. I actually don't know. Like, I think for me, what I love about it is that I don't have to turn on my TV. I play on the gamepad only, really. Mm-hmm. So I think that's neat, that I can just pop on the game, play it, and just I don't know, I like it. It's like having a big 3DS. So yeah, I'm not sure. And I don't know. I don't have the answer because I haven't like sat down to really think about it. But there's gonna be something. Someone's gonna come up with something, and it's gonna be like, oh, that's genius. Mm-hmm. Going back to Adam Atomic, and the Cannonball game. As though you're talking this. I just watched last week's Sup Holmes this week, so I'm like, it's fresh in my mind. But they're talking about runners, and I just think that the runner idea is genius because it's just like, oh, this just makes sense. You don't need buttons. You just touch the screen to get the thing you need. Someone's going to do something with the gamepad where it's like, oh, that is genius. That makes sense. And I think it'll be really neat. And we have a couple ideas that we want to explore. But someone might beat us to it or come up with something else. But you just know that there's going to be some neat things out there in the coming months or years. So I have no idea yet, though.
Yeah, I'm excited to see it. Normally it's Nintendo that leads the front with that, but so far they've just kind of used it as the way they might in the DS. On top of that, a little bit of asymmetrical play, which is cool, but it's similar to what they did with the GBA GameCube Link. So it's been, but for me, off TV play is enough. That's awesome. Little HD console. I'm happy with that. Shadowboy Tyler asks, is WayForward planning on giving any more info on Shantae and the Pirate's Curse soon? Seems like forever since we've heard anything. I've been doing a manual control the whole show. Oh, that was Sinistar.
Oh.
Thank you, Sinistar, for adding that about your life. Very interesting. But
I've never heard of Shantae. I don't know what he's talking about. No, there'll be something. I think when Nintendo Power was going away, they approached us and said, "Hey, do you guys want to be on the cover? Do you have anything?" And we're like, "Oh my God!" So we were in early development on Shantae, and it's like Matt Bozon, who there's so many Nintendo Power fans at the company that we just couldn't pass up the opportunity to get a cover, and it was the subscriber cover. Sadly, it wasn't the main cover also, but it was a cover nonetheless. And so it's like, well, let's reveal the game and get some art out there, like what we have so far, and just it might have been a little earlier than we would normally do. So I kind of apologize to like having people wait, but we also just wanted to say goodbye to Nintendo Power and just do something that was like a lifelong dream for our creative director. So that was sort of that opportunity.
And Shantae fans should be used to. I mean, how long was it between the Game Boy Color game
they shouldn't be used to it, but it's like we put so much passion into it. It's definitely one of those games where you don't want to release it wrong. And going back to Game of Thrones, this is so perfect because George R.R. Martin, he's taken years between his books, and it's because well, for one thing, he needs to get paid. So he does little things, is what he said. But before the show before the show took off, he wrote the first book in 1994. It was published in 1994, and like the third book came out in like 2000. So it's like there's years between that. And people are like, "Why don't you just sit down and write it?" He's like, "Because I got bills to pay, I got a family to feed, so I'm gonna do other things to help support the thing I love." So Shantae is a labor of love. So we don't set out to say like, well, people can wait 4 years for this. It's just it's how it happens because you start getting into it and you start putting so much care into it. You don't want it to be bad or wrong. So like we're really from Matt's mouth, like we're making an effort to not make people wait too long for it. So like it's getting a lot of attention. So who knows though? Tomorrow it could be different. It could be like
that's the thing.
A whole different story. But you like going back to last week's show. You can never really know when something's going to be done because it's just it's done when it's done. But you'll be hearing more from it soon. I definitely think so. We don't want to keep people in the dark. So
of course not. But people hopefully have seen that the wait was worth it last time. I felt between the Game Boy Color game and the DSi eyewear game was fantastic work they did on that. I could go on.
They did.
Yeah.
I got to watch them make it. It was neat.
But the creative process, wouldn't it be great if we could just make stuff great instantly? But it takes time and inspiration and luck, and you don't want to force things.
No, you don't.
But anyway, back to the questions. I'm sorry. Slow Holmes, our old friend, asks, would games that allow for sequence breaking and speed running, like Super Metroid, be considered as having player-chosen length? If so, what relevance do you think this could have on the relation to price and length? And I think that goes for difficulty,
right?
Perhaps too. Is it chosen player-chosen difficulty?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think anyone who plays through a game as fast as you can and just sort of can speed run something without sequence breaking is getting the minimum game. Is like, well, what is that minimum experience? And so you, like, as a developer, you plan for that. You say like, okay, if someone knows what they're doing this as fast as they can, they're really good at playing games. How do they do this? And you kind of plan for that. Sequence breaking, I wouldn't say so much because you're kind of going outside the confines of what you're supposed to do or what you're allowed to do. So I wouldn't hold someone too strong for that. But yeah, you try to make sure that the people who are like great at the game and can maybe do it really fast are getting like what they would expect out of it. But you don't want to make it so hard that on the other end of the spectrum, you don't want to make people who suck at games hate it because they can't get anywhere, and it's like, haha, we got your money. Like you don't want to do that. So.
Yeah, it's very. I can imagine it's very hard to figure out for yourself as you get to know a game very well. How hard is this game? Can you assess that from the inside out? And as a reviewer, we have to deal with that too because we're given a game and we're like, okay, beat it in 3 days. And that's not the way someone who buys a game will hopefully be thinking about it like it's their job. So you have to take yourself out of that mentality as well as you can while you're reviewing it so you don't have that pepper your experience and cause you to ignore little details in the game because you're just trying to run through it to get the review done. The user reviews are so important for that way. As much as I love the industry and I respect my peers and have some respect for myself, maybe not as much as I should, but I respect user reviews very, very much because there's no denying the fact that someone who buys a game and plays through it is going to have different stuff going into it than someone who is given code for review a week before and also has to like somehow express their ideas.
Well, especially if you guys can play almost every game that comes through the door, and versus someone who only plays a couple games a year.
Sure.
Like as a kid, I only got 2 or 3 games a year, like at Christmas and a birthday, and that was it. I didn't. There's a lot of games I never played. I only recently played Lolo for the first time last week because that crap is hard.
That is a hard game,
but
isn't it?
it's really fun, yeah. Because just like Adam and Montana just won't shut up about it, so I had to finally play it. And I really liked it. But yeah, there's so many games I just didn't get a chance to play, and so you pull your own experiences off of things that you pull from a different pool of reference.
Sure.
But yeah, user reviews are so important because you want to make sure that people are enjoying your game. You don't want to just forget the player because you're doing this. You aren't just doing this just for yourself. You're doing it so people can have a lot of fun. So
yeah, and that's for you. I would imagine reading the reviews and reading user comments, as painful as it might be, depending on the situation. That's a huge part of what it's about. Is getting to have a relationship with the world. And on a large scale, so many people have played your games. Isn't that weird?
Yes, it's really weird. And you can't discredit things. You can't just like, oh well, they don't know. Like it comes to a point where what is it? If one person calls you a butthole, they're a jerk. If 2 people call you butthole, you might be a butthole or something like that. I don't know. I think it might be more swearing in it, but it's just that sort of thing. You do need to like take into account what a lot of people say, and I think it's important. It's a balance. You strike the balance what you want to do as an artist and what you want people to like.
Yeah, that's a hard one.
It's fun. It's fun. You're getting to do it with your teenage Pokemon. Hey, look, I pimped it for you again.
Thank you for pimping that Pokemon.
You're welcome.
I didn't ask you if you liked it on purpose. I don't want to...
I'm not a Pokemon fan. Like my only experience with Pokemon has been playing Smash Brothers, and it was the Japanese version of Smash Brothers. So I don't know their freaking names except Pikachu, and because like things come out, and they say like they say their names in Japanese, and I'm just like, I don't understand anything that they're saying. And then I play Smash Brothers with people who play the American version. They're like naming all the Pokemon. I'm like, what? Because I was like 18 or 19 when it came out. I took my youngest brother to the movie. I'm like, this is shit. I do not like this. And so, I'm not a big Pokemon fan. So, like, I feel like there's jokes I didn't get, but it's well animated, and there are some like good characteristics to it. So,
that's nice to say.
I smiled. I probably didn't get some inside jokes.
Smiling is good.
Smiling is good. I don't smile at
those...
everything.
No, I bet you don't. No, I didn't mean that in a bad way, but I don't smile at everything either. I won't talk about Teenage Pokemon too much, or at all, actually. I'll just move on quickly because we only have 2 minutes, and this is your show. Noxious asks, every group project will cause individuals of the group to compromise. Is there anything that stands out in your mind of something you wanted to add to a given project but got dropped because of a compromise?
Oh, it's constant. You always have compromise. You always have things. I mean, there's some small regrets. One of the neatest things we did, Thor: God of Thunder. For your next question, what's a game you pause and just look at? Thor: God of Thunder, because it looks amazing. Play it on DS. Jake Kaufman recorded for MIDI for the DS. He recorded guitar samples to get a heavy metal, black metal sort of soundtrack going on, and then we ultimately couldn't. No, it needs to be more like the movie. It needs to be orchestrated. And we're like, oh my gosh, we had this metal version of the theme song that was just so awesome. And it's we had to just abandon it. Luckily, he got to use those samples, used them on Blood Rain. And so there was he still got to make use of that and just made a really awesome metal soundtrack for that. But that was something where it's kind of so bummed about that. Luckily, at WayForward, with the people we've worked with, there are so many people with great taste, and they're they have such great ideas, like the publishers we worked with, that we've gotten to do a lot of things we want to do, which is really neat.
Awesome. Yeah. And Thor is... It's too bad we didn't get to talk about that. You designed that female troll. You did a bald, toothy troll with abs.
I love subversive art. I'm a big fan of Oh man, I forgot his name. Anyway, but like you see all these sexy ladies everywhere, and it's just like, oh, here's a comic lady. Oh, here's her, boobs hanging out. It's like, well, like what would a female troll look like? There's all these trolls, and all the reference I was looking at, they're all guys. I'm like, well, let's put a lady in there, and I want to just make guys go, hey, oh, like, haha, joke's on you. Stop being a perv, like that was sort of my thing. So and I grew to really like the character too. It's really neat. And like even the artist, Mark Brooks, he drew her and he's just like, oh, what's this? This is weird. And he's like, it's pretty cool looking, So I thought that was kind of neat. God, yeah. Who
badass, yeah.
Going back to the art talk, yeah. Jeff Koons is someone in the past 30 years who's made a lot of art where it's just like, oh, Duchamp, like Marcel Duchamp. It's like that guy is a genius. It's like he's questioning like what is art, and I kind of feel the same way with with games sometimes, where it's just like here's here's your conception of like what a woman should look like in a game. Well, here, check this out. Ha ha ha. Like stop being a douchey bro perv man.
You said it, not me. I was thinking it. I didn't say it.
You douchey bro perv man, Holmes. You're gross. Stop it. Get your mind out of the gutter.
It's true. I am truly the worst. Thank you so much for being on the show.
This was so much fun. It went by so fast. I had a lot of fun.
I hope you get to make a Duchampy game someday. We'll see about that.
I have a couple ideas. We can talk about them sometime. That wouldn't do them big publisher. And you don't want to make a joke at the player's expense. That you want to take the player on the ride with you, kind of like Jim Crawford did the Frog Fractions.
Sure. And you watch the show and you listen to Podtoid, that train wreck of a thing.
It's horrible. That Jim Sterling, man, that potty mouth. No, it's fun, because it's like I don't get to do it enough because I have to be working so much in other people's desks, but it's still a lot of fun, and these shows are great because I like to hear other devs talk, and you just want to talk to other devs, and it's almost like you get to because you hear them saying something. It's like, oh yeah, I feel the same way, or I had that same experience. It's really neat. So keep it up.
You are too nice. Thanks, Austin. And people should follow you on Twitter.
Yes.
What's your Twitter handle exactly?
Ivan-Smith. Hey, there's a dog barking.
Yeah, she's been pretty quiet until now. And you're at WayForward. They can follow them. That's WayForward_tech, I think, on Twitter.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I think it's just at WayForward Tech. It's all one word.
You're right. And your game, they should go play it. And look forward to news about Mighty Switch Force 2. Very exciting. So you're working on that one.
Yes, yeah. I started directing it, and it's been handed off a few times because I had to do the HD version. So it's kind of had like a slower development process, going through a bunch of hands. I directed some of it and did a bunch of level design, and Matt Bozon is like handling the final pass on it right now. He's playing through it and getting it final. There's a little dog in your lap. What's that little guy doing? I'm just shaking your camera.
There she is.
The show was going so great, and then you just, you brought the dog out,
She's like that ugly dog in your game.
The ugly checkpoint dog that a lot of people
love that dog.
Cat. Yeah, he's great. Yeah, people really should check it out. It's a fun game. It's some of the most fun I've ever had making a game, and I think people should check it out. It's really neat.
Well, thank you so much for being on the show. Conrad's gonna be mad. We're 3 minutes over. You can follow me on. That's okay. He'll be okay. You can follow me, Tron Knots, on Twitter. You can listen to Podtoid. I forgot I did that. We do that every week on Destructoid. And Teenage Pokemon. The 3rd episode came out today. It's called Mewtwo Girls. And the people who like it are saying this is the best thing I've ever seen. And the people who hate it are saying this is literally made of human garbage. You smell the worst. They're telling me I smell the worst.
No, it's made by human garbage too, right?
Yeah, I am the worst, and it is the worst. So it's a love it or hate it show. I'd be interested if the people who watch this thing and listen to this thing check it out and tell me what you think. That would be fun for me. Okay, I guess we go now. Take care now. Bye-bye.